The grand hall of the Aerith Dominion, once Lyriel's realm, now echoed with emptiness. Shafts of pallid light slanted through fractured stained glass, painting the shattered marble in bruised colors. Lyriel sat atop a battered silver dais, her blue-black feathers dulled and ruffled, wings folded so tightly behind her back they ached. Her cracked helmet and battered armor spoke of too many battles lost, of a dominion slipping from her grasp. A rustle of silks and polished boots broke the silence. Regent Therix entered, trailed by a retinue of sycophantic courtiers. His plumage was immaculate, his manner syrupy and smooth as he swept a mocking bow. "My honored cousin," Therix announced, his voice carrying easily in the hollow space. "A gift, as reward for your recent compliance." He gestured. Guards dragged forward a human male, his wrists shackled but his posture unbowed. The man's clothing was torn and dirty, yet his gaze was clear and sharp, defiant even under the weight of chains. The courtiers whispered behind jeweled hands, laughter flickering like candle flame. Lyriel's taloned fingers flexed, scraping hairline grooves into the armrest. Her eyes swept over the captive, appraising. He looked back, not with fear, but a flickering empathy that unsettled her more than open contempt. "Leave us," she commanded, voice low but edged. Therix smiled thinly, nodded, and withdrew with his entourage. Lyriel waited for the doors to close before fixing her gaze on the human. "Your name?" she demanded. "Rowan," he replied, chin lifted. "Rowan Vance." She studied him, noting the intelligence glinting in his eyes. "You will attend me in my quarters, now." A flick of her claw dismissed the guards. Rowan fell into step beside her, unflinching under the scrutiny of passing servants and the stare of ancient statues. In the corridor's gloom, his voice was quiet. "Do you always treat your rewards so kindly?" "Only those who look me in the eye," she replied, not meeting his gaze. That evening, in her candlelit chambers, Lyriel tested him. As she crossed the room, she let a delicate relic, a filigreed orb of glass and silver, slip from her grasp. It tumbled toward the floor, light flashing along its curves. In a blur, Rowan darted forward, catching it an instant before it shattered. He cradled the orb in his palms, then set it gently back on the table. "It's a shame to see beauty destroyed," he murmured, his tone soft but weighted. Their eyes met. Lyriel's feathers shivered along her spine. There was no cowering in his expression, only a silent understanding. Recognition of loss, perhaps, or kinship in defeat. She dismissed him for the night, mind troubled by his words. At dawn, Lyriel woke to the scent of fresh bread and steaming broth. Her meal, once bland gruel, was unexpectedly nourishing. As she sat, Rowan entered, hands unbound for the first time. "I spoke with the cooks," he said, voice calm but unwavering. "Told them the Dominion's heart deserved better fare." She stiffened at the phrase, shame and pride twisting in her gut. Yet as she ate, warmth spread through her limbs, strength returning for the first time in ages. She gestured for him to sit. "Tell me of your world, Rowan. Of Earth." He leaned back, gaze distant. "It's wild, sometimes cruel, but liberty is cherished there. Even in defeat, we fight for it. It's in the air, the way people speak. Freedom, even to fail, is a kind of beauty." Lyriel listened, entranced and unsettled by the concept. Freedom, so alluring, so subversive in the rigid Dominion. She found herself wanting to ask more, but bit the words back. Later, she led Rowan through winding corridors to a secluded training hall, its high ceiling shrouded in dust. Ancient sparring automatons lined the walls, inert and forgotten. "Activate one," she ordered, half expecting him to fumble. Rowan moved with practiced ease, fingers dancing over the controls. The automaton lurched to life, metal limbs swinging. With lethal precision, Rowan weaved in and struck, disabling it in 3 swift motions. The machine crashed to the floor, sparks hissing. Lyriel advanced, suspicion sharpening her features. "You fight like a soldier, not a prisoner." He met her gaze, unflinching. "I was trained. I can help you reclaim your prowess, if you let me." Her pride warred with her desperation. Finally, she nodded. "Show me then." Rowan put her through a brutal regimen. Drills she'd forgotten, tactics lost in the fog of defeat. His voice was unyielding, yet never cruel. Her muscles burned, her feathers stuck with sweat. But the old fire, the warrior's flame, rekindled inside her. After hours, she caught her reflection in a cracked mirror. Feathers askew, armor dented, eyes fierce and alive. For the first time in ages, Lyriel saw not a fallen queen, but the warrior she once was. Secret passageways beneath the palace became their covert training ground. The ancient stones whispered with secrets as Lyriel and Rowan slipped through the narrow corridors, the faint glow of Rowan's handheld lantern casting wild shadows over their faces. In shadowed alcoves where dust motes danced in the cold air and mirrored vaults that reflected their every movement, Rowan forced Lyriel to rely on more than discipline. He demanded she trust her instincts. "Close your eyes," Rowan instructed one evening, his voice low, echoing off the damp stone. Lyriel hesitated, then obeyed. Darkness pressed against her lids. She felt, rather than heard, Rowan circling her, boots barely scuffing the floor, his breath measured. "Listen. Not with your ears, with your whole body," he murmured. A whisper of air warned her an instant before his hand darted for her shoulder. She pivoted, catching his wrist, twisting until he grunted approval. "Again," he said, and the session resumed. Days bled into nights, and their sparring grew intense. The lines between rivalry and something deeper blurred, the air thickening with adrenaline and unspoken tension. Blades flashed in the gloom, talons clashed against human hands, and every victory, every brush of skin, left them both a little more breathless. One night, deep in the mirrored vault, their duel reached its peak. Silvered glass multiplied their images into infinity, the clatter of their combat reverberating from every angle. Lyriel feinted left, swept Rowan's legs, and in a heartbeat had him pinned. Her talons pressed gently at his throat, her body straddling his, both of them panting, sweat mingling with the scent of steel and stone. Rowan's eyes met hers, wide, pupils dilated with more than the thrill of combat. "Well played," he whispered, the faintest smile curving his lips. Lyriel's breathing hitched. She realized abruptly how close their faces were, her feathers brushing his cheek, his hand braced at her waist. Rowan reached up, his fingers trembling just slightly, and brushed a stray lock of hair from her face. His thumb traced the curve of her jaw, slow and reverent. For an endless moment they hovered at the edge of something fragile. Lyriel felt her resolve waver, heart pounding so fiercely she thought he must hear it. She leaned in, close enough to feel his breath, the possibility of a kiss hanging between them. But duty snapped her back. She drew away, rising to her feet in one smooth motion. "We train," she said, voice clipped. "Nothing more." Rowan sat up, rubbing the back of his neck. "Of course. Just training." Their sessions only intensified after that. Every move became a challenge, every touch electric. Lyriel pushed herself harder, determined not to be undone by feelings she refused to name. Rowan matched her in stubbornness and skill, and together they moved like a single entity, predator and prey, circling, testing, learning. One afternoon, as golden light filtered through a grate high above, Lyriel launched into a complex maneuver Rowan had taught her. She caught him off guard, sending him sprawling onto the cold stone. He grunted, rolling onto his back as she stood over him, triumphant for once. A metallic object slid from the folds of his uniform and skittered across the floor, catching the light. A small, iridescent data crystal, unmistakably Terran. Rowan's mask slipped. Panic flashed across his features, raw and unguarded. He scrambled to retrieve the crystal, but Lyrael was faster. Her talons closed around it, holding it up between them. "What is this?" she demanded, voice sharp as a blade. Rowan's jaw tightened. "It's nothing. Just a keepsake." "A keepsake?" Lyrael's eyes narrowed, searching his face for the truth. "You're not a man for keepsakes, Rowan." He stood, hands raised in surrender, but there was steel in his posture. "I can't explain." "You will," she insisted, wings flaring with anger. "Or you will regret it." For a long moment, they stood in silence. The only sound was the distant drip of water echoing through the passageways. Rowan's gaze was pleading. "You have to trust me, Lyrael. Some things are better left unsaid." Her expression hardened. "Trust is for those who have earned it." She turned, slipping the crystal into her belt. "Get out." Rowan hesitated, pain flickering in his eyes, but he obeyed, footsteps retreating into the shadows. Left alone in the vault, Lyrael stared at the crystal, her talons trembling. She activated her private terminal, sliding the data crystal into the slot. Lines of alien code scrolled across the screen, the interface blinking as it decrypted. Files opened. Dossiers, mission logs, encrypted orders. The truth assembled itself piece by piece, each detail a fresh wound. Rowan Vance. Designation: Earth Operative. Objective: assess Lyrael, former sovereign of the Aerith Dominion. Determine if she is ally or threat. If threat, neutralize. Lyrael recoiled as though struck. The world tilted, memory and hope unraveling. She remembered every glance, every whispered word, the warmth in Rowan's eyes. All of it, she realized, could have been nothing more than tactics. A mission. She closed her eyes, fighting the urge to scream. She had let herself hope again, let herself feel alive in the aftermath of ruin. For a brief moment she had believed in the possibility of something new, an ally, perhaps even a friend. Maybe more. But instead of rage, a cold, clear resolve settled over her. Her pulse slowed. She wiped tears she refused to shed, straightened her armor, and studied her reflection in the mirrored wall. She saw not a victim, but a strategist, a leader forged by betrayal. If Rowan thought he could use her, he was mistaken. She would turn the game to her own ends. She would use him, shape his mission to serve her. And in the end, when the time came, Rowan Vance would be her weapon, not Earth's. She rose, crystal clenched in her fist, and vanished into the shadows, her heart sealed behind new armor. Lyrael spent the night plotting. She paced the length of her dim-lit chambers, talons clicking against ancient stone, every shadow and memory pressing in. The data crystal glimmered on her desk, a reminder of betrayal and, perversely, of hope. By the time the first light pried through her window, her resolve had hardened to steel. She summoned Rowan with a single sharp command. He entered moments later, wary and tense. His hair was tousled, his shirt hastily buttoned, as if he'd barely slept. He stood in the threshold, gaze searching her face, as if trying to read whether she'd call for the guards or for him alone. "Sit," Lyrael said, her voice as cold as the dawn. She slid the data crystal across the table. "I know who you are, Rowan Vance. Earth operative, mission to evaluate me, and, if I'm a threat, eliminate me." Rowan's jaw clenched. He didn't look away. "You found it." "I did. I know your orders." "I know everything." Lyrael leaned forward, wings arched in silent challenge. "But listen closely. I will not be eliminated. I will not be used. Instead, you will help me overthrow Therix. You will serve my cause. In return, I'll offer Earth something Therix never could. An alliance. He stared at her, weighing options he did not have. At last, he nodded, jaw tight. You have my help. For what it's worth, Lyriel. She cut him off, crossing the distance in 2 strides. Her taloned hand seized his collar and pulled him into a kiss, fierce and bruising, channeling days of fury and nights of longing. For a heartbeat, Rowan resisted, then surrendered, his arms winding around her, his hands threading through her feathers. The passion was mutual, desperate and raw. For the first time, they allowed themselves to feel it fully, as if the world beyond this moment didn't exist. When they parted, breathless, Rowan cupped her cheek, voice hoarse. I never meant you harm. Not truly. She searched his eyes, the truth unmistakable there. You serve me now, Rowan. My cause. My rules. Agreed, he whispered, fingers lacing through hers. They bent over maps and security schematics, planning as equals. Rowan sketched out the palace's shift changes, tapping his finger on the guard's routes. There's a weak point during the 3rd rotation. If we stage a diversion here, the eastern corridor will be nearly unguarded. I know secret routes the others have forgotten. Lyriel traced a hidden passage beneath the kitchens. We can vanish before Therix's soldiers even know we've moved. Rowan's comm implant chimed, a silent pulse against his jaw. He pressed his palm to it, lips barely moving. Handler wants an update. They're getting suspicious. Lyriel watched him, tense. He spoke in code, voice flat and professional. Subject compliant. No further resistance. Progressing as planned. He killed the link and exhaled. That'll buy us some time. She nodded, pressing her hand to his. We use every moment. In public, Lyriel played her role to perfection. She slouched in the throne room, wings drooped, eyes downcast, her every gesture radiating defeat. The courtiers smirked and whispered, emboldened by her apparent submission. Therix barely spared her a glance, believing his victory complete. Only Rowan saw through the mask. In the moments their gazes met, something unspoken passed between them, a promise, a plan taking shape beneath the veneer of obedience. Evenings in her chambers became their sanctuary. They hunched over stolen blueprints, trading ideas and risks, sometimes arguing, sometimes laughing. One night, as she outlined a risky maneuver, Rowan's hand closed over hers. I can't bear the thought of leaving you, he blurted. Not after all this. Lyriel froze, the admission cutting through her practiced detachment. For a moment she couldn't speak. Rowan, Her voice broke, unexpectedly soft. I feel the same. More than I wish I did. He smiled, something gentle and wounded in it. She leaned in, and their next kiss was softer, filled with hope and the unspoken promise of a future neither dared name. The night of their escape arrived, moonlight painting the palace in blue-silver streaks. Rowan moved first, slipping into the kitchens as the servants finished their late meal. He planted a small charge near the ovens, setting the timer with steady hands. At the appointed moment, the explosion rocked the lower wing, fire licking up the walls and panicked shouts echoing through the halls. Lyriel and Rowan moved in the chaos, cloaked in shadow. They slipped through service corridors and forgotten passageways, disabling guards with silent efficiency, Rowan's grip ruthless, Lyriel's talons precise and quick. The palace was alive with confusion. Fire bells clanged, orders were shouted. The world above them turned to smoke and fear. But the final corridor loomed, harsh light spilling from the archway ahead. They slid to a halt as figures emerged from the gloom. Melis, Therix's chief enforcer, tall and armored in obsidian plates, her eyes cold and predatory. Behind her, an elite squad fanned out, weapons drawn, blocking the only exit. Melis grinned, a cruel slash of teeth. Going somewhere, traitors? Lyriel stepped forward, wings spread, chin high. Rowan shifted beside her, stance ready. Your quarrel is with me, Malus, Lyriel called, voice steady. Malus's gaze flicked to Rowan, then back to Lyriel. You always were the sentimental one, cousin. Step aside and maybe I'll let your pet live. Rowan's fingers brushed the hilt of his blade, but he waited for Lyriel's signal. She drew herself up to her full height, feathers bristling. If you want me, Lyriel said, come and take me. Malus snarled, raising her weapon. Her squad moved as one, a wall of steel and muscle. Lyriel and Rowan exchanged a single glance, a silent pact forged in trust and defiance. The corridor echoed with the first clash of steel as they launched into the fray, side by side against the darkness. Malus cornered them in the ceremonial sanctum, the chamber's mosaic floor splintered beneath the boots of Therix's elite. Silver lanterns flickered, casting monstrous shadows against the soaring columns and gilded walls. Lyriel and Rowan pressed back to back, breath mingling in the charged air, blades flashing as they faced the oncoming wave. The sanctum's high doors slammed shut. Malus advanced, eyes burning with the cold light of augments, her obsidian armor hissing with each calculated step. Behind her, the last of her squad fanned out, encircling the fugitives. Nowhere left to run, Malus called, voice metallic, mocking. Good, Lyriel shot back, spinning into a lunge that sent one guard crashing to the floor. I'd rather stand and fight. They moved in a deadly ballet, Lyriel's wings flaring, Rowan ducking low, their movements perfectly synchronized. Rowan caught a soldier's wrist, twisting the weapon free and sending him tumbling. Lyriel's talons flashed, slicing through armor, her every move a testament to hard-won skill. Each enemy that closed in fell quickly, but Malus watched, waiting for her moment. A sudden shriek of metal, Malus surged forward, blade drawn. She crashed into Rowan, driving him back with a flurry of strikes. Her blows landed with the force of a war machine. Rowan parried, sweat streaking his brow, every muscle straining to keep up. Sparks flew as steel met steel. Lyriel, locked with two attackers, risked a glance. Rowan was faltering. Rowan! She cried, breaking free and slamming an opponent to the floor. He managed a tight smile, even as Malus pressed her advantage. I'm fine, he gasped. Malus's eyes glinted with malice. Not for long. She feinted high, then drove a wicked blade into Rowan's side. He staggered, eyes wide, and collapsed to his knees. Lyriel screamed, unleashing a storm of fury. She dispatched the remaining guards in a whirlwind of feathers and rage, landing between Malus and Rowan, wings spread to shield him. Malus stepped back, admiring her handiwork. You fight well, cousin, but you can't save him now. Lyriel knelt, cradling Rowan's head. His skin was already paling, sweat beading on his forehead. The wound oozed an unnatural blackness. Poison! Lyriel spat. Give me the antidote, now! Malus laughed, cold and echoing. There is none. The toxin is synthetic, designed for Terran biology. He'll be dead within minutes. Lyriel's world narrowed to a pinpoint. Rowan, hold on, I'll get you help. He coughed, forcing a weak smile. Med Bay. Emergency systems might filter it out. You have to move, Lyriel. She hesitated only a heartbeat, then hauled him upright, draping his arm over her shoulder. With a final glare at Malus, who simply smirked, Lyriel barreled through a side door, dragging Rowan into the maze of corridors. They ran blind, alarms shrieking overhead. Patrols scoured the halls, but Lyriel knew the palace's forgotten arteries better than anyone. She ducked through hidden archways and servant tunnels, Rowan's weight heavy against her. His breaths grew shallow, his steps faltering. Don't you dare die on me, she hissed, voice thick with tears. He managed a faint chuckle. Wouldn't dream of it. Not before you win. The medbay's doors slid open as Lyrael stumbled in. The sterile chamber was eerily silent, its white light stark and unfeeling. She dropped Rowan onto a gurney, slamming her palm against the control panel. AI, initiate emergency toxin protocol, she ordered. The medbay's AI flickered to life. Analyzing patient, foreign toxin detected, initiating filtration sequence. Time to full purge, uncertain. Mechanical arms descended, attaching sensors and IVs. Rowan's eyes fluttered. Lyrael, he whispered, voice barely audible. You need to go. She gripped his hand, refusing to let go. No, I won't. You have to, he insisted, summoning the last of his strength. Therix will double security. If you stay, we both die. There's a ship. Docking Bay 9. Captain Soren. Tell him Rowan sent you. Lyrael's vision blurred. You're not dying, Rowan. I'll come back for you. I swear it. He tried to smile, his lips trembling. Go. Win this for both of us. She bent, pressing a frantic kiss to his lips. A promise. A goodbye. A plea for time to hold still. His hand squeezed hers once, then slackened as the sedative took hold. Lyrael tore herself away, running through the medbay's back exit as patrols pounded past. She ducked through maintenance shafts, emerging breathless in the docking levels. Docking Bay 9 was chaos. Alarms blaring, soldiers shouting, ships prepping for evacuation. She spotted Soren, a broad-shouldered, rough-faced Terran in pilot leathers, arguing with a mechanic. She grabbed his arm. Rowan Vance sent me. I need passage. Now. Soren's eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed with understanding. Get in. Don't look back. They tore out of the bay just as security forces swarmed the hangar. Lyrael watched the palace shrink away, the uncertainty of Rowan's fate clinging to her like a shroud. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back, but Soren's voice was iron. Save your strength for the next fight, not the last one, he said gruffly as they cleared the planet's upper atmosphere. Lyrael wiped her tears, forcing herself to focus. Duty warred with fear, but she straightened her armor and set her jaw. There would be time to grieve. After Tharix fell. Soren guided the ship through jump calculations, then led her into a cramped operations bay. Inside, a tall woman with silvered hair waited, eyes sharp as diamond, a presence that seemed to fill the room with gravitas. Commander Elira Voss, Soren introduced. She runs the Resistance. Voss extended a hand. You're Lyrael, the rightful heir. We've heard rumors, but seeing you here, alive, changes everything. Lyrael shook her hand, standing tall despite the ache in her heart. Therix won't stop until I'm dead. He has Malus. And now, he may have Rowan too. Voss's expression hardened. We're out of time. Therix plans to activate the Starbreaker array in less than a week. If he succeeds, he'll be able to erase entire systems, planets, people, history itself. We need you, Lyrael. Not just as a strategist, but as a symbol. The Dominion's lost heart, and its hope. A hush fell. Lyrael nodded slowly, the weight of expectation settling on her shoulders. She looked to Soren, to Voss, to the faces of the Resistance fighters gathering in the corridor beyond. I'll do whatever it takes, she vowed, for Rowan. For all of us. The stakes were cosmic now, and Lyrael would not falter. Transformed by pain and necessity, Lyrael became the heart of the rebellion. Every scar and loss, every drop of hope she'd clung to in the darkness, now blazed outward. She moved through the Resistance stronghold with wings unfurled, her eyes fierce and bright. Rumor of her survival leapt from world to world, fanned by traitors and fugitives. The winged queen lives. In a time of despair, that cry became a beacon. She united allies who had once turned their backs on one another: Dominion captains, Terran defectors, smuggler guilds, and old rivals. In a war room choked with star charts and shifting fleets, Lyrael's voice cut through doubt. We fight together, or we perish alone. The Dominion is more than Therix's tyranny. It's us, the dream of freedom, the promise of home. Murmurs of assent rippled through the assembly. Even the most cynical found themselves drawn to her cause. Each day, another fleet pledged loyalty, ragtag but resolute. Lyrael stood at the center, forging them into something formidable. By the second week, the resistance banner flew above outposts in every sector. Pilots painted her sigil, a winged crown on their hulls. The cry echoed in every shadowed alley and war-torn street. The winged queen lives. In the midst of this storm, Lyrael could not forget Rowan. Grief had become a companion, his memory threading through every moment. Yet duty allowed no time for mourning. She sharpened her resolve, hiding longing behind command. Then, on a morning shrouded in mist and gunmetal gray, the comms chimed with a priority signal. Soren burst into the command tent, breathless. There's an Earthship inbound, medical evac. They're requesting you, Lyrael, by name. A hush fell. Lyrael felt her heart stutter. She forced her feet to move, striding through the camp with measured calm. At the landing pad, the hatch irised open. A Terran medical officer stepped out, followed by a figure she recognized before he spoke. Rowan, battered, limping, bandaged but upright, emerged into the light. He looked thinner, paler, shadows carved deep beneath his eyes. But he was alive. The sight of him, real and breathing, nearly undid her. Rowan met her gaze, tension rippling between them like static before a storm. You look different, he said softly. War changes us all, she replied, her voice steady. He managed a half smile. Earth's team found me before the toxin finished the job. I convinced them not to drag me home in a stasis pod. I had to see you. Lyrael kept her face unreadable, wary. And why is that, Rowan? Are you here as Earth's envoy, or something else? He straightened, meeting her eyes without flinching. Earth wants a voice in the new Dominion. I've been authorized to offer support. Ships, intelligence, even diplomatic recognition, if we're part of what comes next. Her feathers bristled, suspicion lingering. Is that what you want? Another mission? No. His voice softened, the mask falling away. I want to stand by you. Not as a spy, not as an agent, as the man who believes in you, who chooses you. The words hung between them, trembling with truth and vulnerability. Lyrael's resolve almost broke, but she held his gaze, needing more. And if I fall? If this war destroys what's left of me? Rowan stepped closer, his hand hovering at her arm, uncertain. Then I'll still be here, if you let me. Before she could answer, Commander Voss swept into the tent, urgency written on every line of her face. Lyrael, we have a problem. Voss set a datapad on the table, a tactical map glowing on its surface. Therix has accelerated his plan. The Starbreaker array is powering up. He'll target New Avalon within hours. Gasps and curses rippled through the tent. New Avalon, a flourishing Earth colony home to millions. Rowan's jaw tightened. That's my people, and he'll use it as a warning. Lyrael's feathers flared. He's forcing our hand. This is no longer about thrones or vengeance. It's survival for both our worlds. She looked around the table, voice ringing. Ready the fleet. Arm every ship. We launch for New Avalon, today. Voss nodded, already relaying orders into her comm. Soren slammed a fist on the table. We'll have one shot at this, Lyrael. Once the array fires, nothing survives. Lyrael turned to Rowan, searching his face. Are you ready? He squeezed her hand, eyes fierce. With you. Always. Together they stepped onto the command dais. Officers and pilots gathered, hanging on her words. This is the moment, Lyrael declared, voice carrying to the farthest corners of the camp. The world will know that the Dominion is not a weapon, but a home. Therix has taken enough from us. Today, we take it back. Cheers erupted, fierce and defiant. Rowan stood at her side, no longer an outsider but an equal, his presence a silent vow. As the fleet prepared for battle, Lyrael's fear was tempered by a new certainty. Whatever the outcome, she and Rowan would face it together. Their partnership, forged in adversity, was now unbreakable. The assault on Therix's dreadnought was swift and daring, a thunderclap across the void. Lyrael stood at the heart of her command deck, wings half spread, feathers catching the glow of tactical displays as her fleet surged forward. The Dominion's ragtag armada became a spear of resolve, slicing through enemy formations. Rowan's voice, calm and incisive, crackled through the comms as he relayed timing and coordinates. Strike teams Alpha and Gamma, go now. Use the magnetic shadow from the main batteries, he instructed. Lyrael nodded, eyes narrowed on the shifting holomap. Draw fire to the prow. I want their gunners blind when we breach. Explosions blossomed across the void. The flagship rocked with return fire, but the ruse worked. Enemy cannons locked onto decoy ships, leaving a hidden corridor. Under that cover, shuttles darted through, carrying Lyrael's best fighters. On the secondary deck, Soren's gruff voice boomed, "We're in. Outer hull breached. You have your window, Lyrael." She glanced at Rowan, their partnership forged sharper than any blade. Ready? He drew his weapon, a faint smile on his lips. After you, my queen. They slipped through a maintenance lock into the dreadnought's underbelly, the Starbreaker array looming ahead, a spire of ancient metal and pulsing energy. Corridors twisted with overlapping shadows, echoing with klaxons and shouts. Lyrael led, silent and sure, Rowan at her side, every step in sync. As they neared the core, the architecture changed, vaulted ceilings, mosaic inlays, the pride of Old Dominion. Lyrael's breath caught as they entered the control chamber. There, beneath the array's glowing heart, stood Tharix, flanked by loyal officers, his obsidian armor burnished and imposing. Lyrael, Tharix intoned, contempt coloring his words. So the fallen queen returns, dragging Terran filth at her heel. Lyrael drew herself up, wings unfurling in full regality. End this, Tharix. Yield and let the Dominion live. He laughed, blade in hand. You forget your place. This is my throne now. She strode forward, voice ringing across the chamber. Then let us settle it as our ancestors decreed. Single combat before your officers. Winner claims the throne. A hush fell. Pride flickered in Tharix's eyes. He nodded once. As you wish, cousin. A pity it ends here. They circled each other, the room shrinking to the thrum of blood and memory. Tharix struck first, arrogant, brutal, his strength undeniable. Lyrael met every blow, her movements honed by months of battle, by Rowan's lessons in human unpredictability. She pivoted, feinted, forced Tharix onto the defensive. He roared, pressing his advantage. You were always weaker, Lyrael, always hiding behind hope and mercy. Hope is not weakness, she spat, ducking beneath his guard, landing a ringing blow against his breastplate. It's the fire you never understood. Anger clouded Tharix's eyes. His strikes grew wild, desperate. Lyrael waited, letting his arrogance burn itself out, then countered. Precise, unrelenting. She wove through his defenses using every skill Rowan had drilled into her, every lesson learned in the shadowed halls. With a final sweeping arc, Lyrael knocked Tharix's blade aside. He stumbled. She pressed her talon at his throat, forcing him to his knees before his stunned officers. "It is over," she declared. "By blood and right, I reclaim the Dominion." She fixed her gaze on the officers. "Pledge loyalty or join your master in defeat." One by one, they knelt, laying their weapons at her feet. Lyriel turned to the control dais. "Disable the Starbreaker, now." Rowan appeared in the archway, a bruise darkening his jaw but a grin on his lips. "Done. Arrays neutralized." All codes purged. A tidal wave of relief swept through Lyriel. She exhaled, the weight of war finally lifting from her shoulders. She looked to Rowan, her voice warm and clear. "The war is over." He crossed the chamber, and together they strode through the corridors as victors. News of Therix's fall spread like wildfire, the Dominion's loyalists standing down, fleets hailing their surrender. The dreadnought, once a symbol of tyranny, now echoed with new hope. Later, as the fleet assembled in orbit, Lyriel stood on the observation deck. Stars sprawled beyond the glass, the reborn Dominion stretching into the darkness. Ships drifted in formation, their lights a promise of peace. Rowan joined her, his reflection cast beside hers in the transparent steel. He broke the silence first, voice gentle. "What happens now, Lyriel? To the Dominion? And to us?" She turned, at last unguarded, a genuine smile softening her features. "We rebuild. Not as conquerors, but as protectors. The Dominion will become what it was meant to be, a home for all its people." She stepped closer, searching his face. "And us? I don't want a spy by my side, nor a shadow. I want you as my consort, my equal, the man who reminded me how to hope." Rowan's smile was slow and bright. "I'd stand beside you in any world, Lyriel. Not as a mission, not as duty, but as the choice I make, every day." She touched his cheek, wonder in her eyes. "Will you stay? Not just for a moment, but for whatever comes next?" He took her hands, fingers lacing with hers. "Yes, for as long as you'll have me." Their kiss was soft at first, then deepened. Promise and renewal. A vow not just to each other, but to the future. Around them, the galaxy turned, entering a new era led by a queen who had learned that love, brave, defiant, and true, was the greatest strength of all.